Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we are back to work on the Tally-Ho Capstan project, and we're still working on this cap piece. This is a new part that we had cast, so we're having to make new everything on it, do the machining. And I'm really kind of down to my last real machining operation. I've got one more little thing I'm gonna have to do to it after that, but it's gonna be more with a grinder, I think. But when we put this on, the post this fits on, we've got this tapered slot up here in the top, or tapered bore that fits over that tapered shaft, lock it in place. But there's a key, a big key that goes all the way through that shaft. And on the original part, if you look at this original hub, what's left of it after it was busted up or whatever, you can see that there's basically just a keyway on either side of that, pretty deep keyway. And we're needing to get that put in there so that we can get that in place. And basically what that does is it prevents this top piece from twisting because there is some cranks in here that you can crank on, and that's what's going to be rotating the drum. So this needs to stay still and timed in place with the shaft that's coming up through it. Now, the challenge or job, whatever you want to call it, that we got today is to get those keyways put in here. This is a little bit different than a typical keyway that we put on a normal, pulley or something like that. Typically, you just have it on one side. In this case, we actually have the key is on both sides of the hole, as you can see here. And the other thing is it is a much deeper key than normally. This is a 7/16 inch wide key that goes in here. And normally on a shaft, if you're just putting a piece of square key stock in there, the depth of that is only about half the thickness. So 7/16 would be 7/32 of an inch would be how deep it would go. This is going really that almost a full square profile. So a full 7/16 or maybe even a little bit deeper. I need to measure it, but it's about twice as deep as a regular size key. So the challenge, I guess, is how are we going to do this? So in my mind, I guess first thing I'll say is the first obvious way to do it would be to use a broach, like you would broach a normal keyway in a hub or whatever. But there's a couple of issues with doing it that way, or challenges with doing it that way. Number one, because of the added depth, that broach is only designed to go in so far. Again, about half the width, so it's not going to go deep enough, at least not a standard broach would. And also we're needing to do it on timed on both sides. Now you can make a broach bushing that is keyed on both sides, so you can flip it around and tie it in place and go that way. So it's doable, but not at this depth, at least not with a stock normal broach kit like you would normally use. I'm not saying you couldn't broach it. In fact, spoiler alert, that's probably what we're going to do is broach it, but we're going to have to do some modifications and change the way we do it to make it do that. My first intention of doing this was to take this over to my horizontal milling machine. I have a sliding attachment for it, which is kind of a shaper head. It just goes up and down. And in fact, let's just go over to the milling machine and show you why I'm unfortunately not going to be able to do it that way, because that was my original plan. So I'm over at my horizontal milling machine, my Kearney Trekker Model 3H horizontal mill, and I do have this sliding attachment that goes on here. So if you've never seen one of these, it's a really cool attachment. You got this head that mounts on here, kind of like a universal head, but in this case, you got a ram that's moving up and down, kind of like a shaper. In fact, let me fire it up and I'll show you. When you turn it on, you can see it going up and down. And my initial plan was I was going to put a square cutter in here, approach it up and down, basically slot that key out, and then just flip my cutter around 180 degrees and then cut the other side out. Real nice and simple. The problem, and the reason we're not going to be able to do this, is that bore is 3 inches deep, and you can see the stroke on this. This only has a 2-inch stroke, so I really couldn't do it all in one operation. Kind of bummed about it because I was really wanting to use this machine to do this. I've never used this sliding head before. I picked it up and I said, oh, this will be a great opportunity to use that and in a practical situation. And this is exactly what this tool was intended for, was cutting keyways and things like that. But yeah, not going to work. So let's look at the broaching option, because that's kind of was my next plan. And we've got some challenges here we're going to have to work through, like I mentioned before. So again, this is a 17/16 or 7/16 inch key that's going in here. I've got a 7/16 inch broach, so it is the correct size to broach that in there. But if you look, you know, these broaches are designed to run in a slot in a broach bushing. So you would drop your broach bushing into the hole, and this would fit in there and run up against that, and you would push this through, and of course each tooth just notches out a little bit more. You push this through and it cuts it all the way out. But because these broaches come in different widths, they standardize the width of this back piece back here so that you can run multiple key sizes with the same size slot. Now this one here for a 7/16 happens to be a 9/16 inch slot back here in the back. So if you can see, it's only going to allow you to go down a certain depth. So if we take this the full possible amount, let me just kind of get a measurement here. This is kind of a rough measurement, but we're looking at about 1/4 of an inch. So I could, with this standard stock broach, cut a hole that's about 1/4 of an inch deep. Our holes here, yeah, they're 7/16 inch deep, so not deep enough. Could I get by with 1/4 of an inch? Well, for that key that's going to go all the way through this, you got 1/4 of an inch engagement on each side. Maybe, but I really don't want to change the original design. I want to make sure this is playing strong enough. So I really want to broach that to the full depth. You know, the other challenge we got is this is a tapered bore. So we'd have to make a custom broach bushing. This is a tapered broach bushing, obviously not this taper, but you know, this is doable. We're going to have to make our own broach bushing for this bore to match this broach. But again, this broach is not going to work, at least the way it is right now. So what am I going to do? Well, I've decided that if I were to modify this broach and basically grind off all of this thick part back here and make this broach thickness, the 7/16, the same size that we're actually going to be cutting, then it would work. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do. I kind of hate to take a perfectly good broach and grind it down to a non-standard size, because when I do, the next time I need a 7/16 inch broach, I'm either going to have to make a custom broach bushing for that particular job or buy a new broach. And I'll probably end up just buying a new broach, because I really just, it's better to have a standard set. But I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this over to the surface grinder. We're going to grind this down to 7/16, basically take that little extra off of each side and go from there. Now the other thing we got to do is make that broach bushing. So I will tell you guys that I cheated a little bit. I've already gotten started making this broach bushing, and I didn't film this because I went out to the museum and used the lathe out there to do it. Why? Because it was already set up on the taper that we were needing to do. And I made the decision not to haul the cameras out there and film it for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that today is a really nasty, rainy, stormy day here in South Georgia where I'm at. And I just didn't really want to have to get all my camera equipment out in that weather and getting it wet and all that to get it into the shop, getting from the truck inside. It would have gotten all wet, and filming out there is just kind of aggravating anyway. So I just went out there and I turned out this bushing here. Now it's got a little stem on the end. I'm going to need that for work holding as I mill out the slots for this, but we've got a tapered piece that fits right down in here. So we can now make a broach bushing that will work on this. And again, that's what we're going to do. So let's do this. I'm going to start by going over to my surface grinder, and we're going to basically grind this nice expensive broach into a one-trick pony. but it's just what I think we need to do to get this job done. So let's go over to the surface grinder and we'll do that. All right, this is actually going to be the first time I've actually used this surface grinder on a real job. New to me machine that we just finished restoring. So I am going to start by just putting the brooch here on the mag chuck, and we will mag that in place. That's firmly on there. And now what we're going to do is we get this machine fired up and we will start grinding the top of this. And I'm just going to grind it down till it's basically to the thickness of the brooch, and then we'll flip it over and cut it the other side and get it ground down as well. Kind of hate to do that with this tool, but that's just what we need to do. All right, I think we are about ready to start grinding. I've got my table extremes kind of set. I've got my stroke of my grinding wheel where it's going to be kind of set going back and forth. So now what we need to do is lower the head down. We get down here to where we're about cutting. I've already dressed my wheel. I've already got my stroke link set. I'm going to put some coolant on here. I think we're ready to start grinding, so I'm just going to take it down a little bit at a time. I'm just down feeding by hand here, and again about 2.5 thousandths. Let it come back across there. Do another 2.5. Again, I'm taking some pretty heavy cuts here, just roughing it in. Once we get down to size, we will take lighter passes like we were doing before. We're about there. I'm just going to let this kind of spark out. We'll probably take it out and get some measurements to make sure, but I think we're about there. All right, there is our modified brooch. Grind turned out nice. We are pretty much right on size all the way down. So now we need to work on making our brooch bushing. So let's go over to the milling machine and get working on that. So I put this tapered bushing into the hub, and I put a mark on the top and the bottom just so I can kind of see exactly where it's engaging and disengaging in there. That's just going to help me kind of lay out my depth of my cut here for this brooch to guide through here. So now with that done, what I'm going to do is I've got a 5C collet block here. This is a square collet block. You've probably seen me use the hex ones before. This one does pretty much the same thing, and I got a 1-inch collet in it, which is the size of this stem that I put on here. So I'm going to tighten this up and leave it sticking out just a little bit. This will, I have to get it over in the vise to get it good and tight. But basically now I can go to my milling machine, put this in here, we'll find the center of this, we'll cut that groove in it, and then I can flip it over 180 degrees, and I'll be directly across from on the other side, and we can cut another groove in there. We're going to need 2 grooves because we're going to need one for the brooch to go in, and we're also going to need a groove for a key to go in so that when we flip it around to do the 180, we can key it off of the other side that we just broached. So anyway, we've got this set up now. I'm going to go to my milling machine and we're going to cut that 7/16 inch slot all the way down through there. Let's go do it. I'm over at the vertical milling machine and we've got our block in here for us to start cutting on. But before I do, I need to find the center. We want to make sure we got this going down the center. So I've got an edge finder in the mill here. We're just going to find the edge on the back and the front jaw, measure the difference between them, divide it in half, and that should put us right in the center. Start on the back there. Pull that edge finder in until it jumps over right there. I'm going to zero out my digital readout. Just double check that. Looks good. We'll go to the other side. And find the edge right there. 64. Just double check it. Okay, we're good. Now I'm just going to divide that in half using digital readout, and I'll put this right in the center. So we'll just move that to 0 on the digital readout now that I've used the half function there. And there we are. All right, we are in the center. I've got a 7/16 inch end mill in here, which is the same diameter as the width of this cutter. And what I want to do, this is the small end of this broach. So I'm just going to measure where that first cut's going to be. It looks like it's about, let's see here, about let's just say 940 or 930. Yeah, 940. We'll call it 940 thousandths. So I'm going to start slotting this out, but this is the small diameter where we're coming out down here. I need to get down to that level and then basically mill down 940 thousandths below that. And then that should give me the slot at the proper depth for my broach to run through. And then we'll flip it around and do the other side. We'll fire up the mill here. I'm just going to raise up until I just start touching right there on that end. And I'm just going to start milling that out. I'm just going to raise that up until I just start to cut it that end diameter down there, and I'm going to zero out my digital readout there, and we'll cut that depth basically to that small end down there. Measuring the wrong end on this while ago. We need to go to say 865 is how deep we need to go. All right, according to my digital readout, that's 865 thousandths right here on the depth. I'm just going to pull that on out. We'll get a measurement and verify that. But hopefully this will have this broach cut out on this side. Let's check and see where we're at. Let's see how this looks. I need to go a little bit deeper down here on this end, but we're real close. That's going to slide in there just fine. I think we got the depth right on this. Take my broach and kind of put it in here and slide it down. It's breaking the diameter right there about where the bottom of our diameter should be. So that should go make the first pass through. So now what I need to do is flip this thing over 180 degrees and put a key on the other side that we can lock it in place with. All right, let's loosen this up, and we will clean our vise out here, make sure there's no chips down there in the bottom. I'm going to turn this over 180 degrees, and we'll put it back in. It should still be lined up on the center. And now I just need to cut a little key in there that we can key it in place. It doesn't have to be as deep as the other side. It just needs to be deep enough for a key to hold it in place. All right, let's come in here and touch off again. This should be all the key that we need. With that, I think we're done with milling. So next, I need to cut this little stem off the bottom that was only in there for work holding. And I think we'll be ready to see about broaching this thing. All right, I got a V-block holding this up so that it's holding it straight. Since this is taper down here on the end, I'm on the bandsaw. I'm just going to trim that little stem off the bottom now. There we go. All right, let's see how we did. So our broach bushing will fit in like such. Our broach will come in behind it. We'll slot that out over on the arbor press. And once we get one side slotted, we can pull this out, turn it around, key it to the side that we slotted on the first side, and then be able to cut one directly on the opposite side of it. That's the game plan. So let's go over to the arbor press, see if we can get this thing cut out. All right, I think we are ready to start the process. I got my broach bushing in and just getting that lined up more or less square to the bore in the other direction. And go ahead and tell you what I'm going to do is put a little cutting oil on this. I like to lube these broaches up a little bit. And away we go, start cutting. We're going to have to do, I think, 6 or 7 passes to get through this. Because it's at that taper, it's still kind of cutting down in the bottom, so we'll have to take a punch here and kind of get it through the bottom part of the cut. Just doing all the cutting right now in the bottom because it's just where everything's at. Let's see what's going on. There we go. So that's our first cut. Now what we will do is put a shim behind this and take her down for a second run. It's just going to increase the cut a little bit. Put another shim in and repeat. All right, we've put in there, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shims. I got one more to go. And that'll be pretty much all the shims I have, unless I go make some more, but that should be about where we need to be on that depth of cut. So let's see here. Kind of having to get it started there. This will be the last one on this side. Then we got to do it all again on the other side. And this has been a workout. Just kind of letting up on that a little bit. I guess I could have used my hydraulic press for this and not had to do this workout, but hey, it's good for me, right? So we got a nice keyway on one side, and now what we want to do is index this to the other side. So I didn't have a piece of 7/16 inch key stock, so I took a piece of 1/2 inch and just took it to the surface grinder, ground it down where it would fit down in that slot, and then I just welded another little piece of small key stock on the top, and that's just to give it a lip to hold to so it doesn't fall through. And what I want to do is we'll get these lined up. That key will go in there and lock that in place back there. And now we can put our brooch over here on the front side. We are now directly across from the other side, and we can cut that one through. Same thing. I'm not going to make you guys watch this, but we'll get her cut. And there we go. Got our double keyway cut. This is ready to put onto the shaft and put a key in there that's going to go all the way through that and through the shaft. I'm going to have to make a key. I still haven't done that. I'm going to have to probably find some 7/16 inch stock to make that out of, but no big deal. Wow, this we are just about done with this. This is exciting. This took some thinking, took some trying to figure out what I had to do to get it done, but you know, just had to be creative. We had to make a custom brooch bushing, had to modify a brooch, but we got it done, and that is checked off the list. The only thing left to do is I've got to do a little bit of grinding to get these little bronze pieces to fit down in, into this casting. I'm just going to have to massage that out by hand and get those bolted in place. And with that done, I think we're going to be ready to dry fit this whole thing together. I'm going to have to adjust the height of the gear that these run on in here, and a few other little adjustments or whatever. I'm also waiting on a shipment to come in from the UK with a couple of the parts that have to go on this, but it all should get here about the right time for us to put this thing together and have it ready to send to Leo and hopefully put on its boat here pretty soon. Guys, that's it. I think we got it knocked out. One more thing checked off the list. Well, guys, that is going to be a wrap. That's about all we can get done on this one. So we'll get those last couple of things done and hopefully have this thing going back together here real soon where we can be shipping it back across to get her put onto the tally-ho, finally. And with that, we are going to sign off, guys. We will catch you on the next video. Again, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thumbs up and comments, always greatly appreciated. It helps with the algorithms on YouTube. Leave those comments, please, down below. Really helps out. And hit that like button. Really, really helps out. And that bell icon, get notification when new videos are posted. Big, huge thank you to those who support the site financially through Patreon and PayPal. Could not do everything we do without your help. It enables me to take the time to do these videos. And with that, we are going to sign off. We'll catch you on the next video again. Thanks for watching.